So I have this sponge dinosaur. And what I'll do is actually pass it to whoever, and then you can say what went well in the past 5 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever you want to share, and then pass it back to me. Yeah? All right.
For you.
And you can think about, just kind of think.
So like in my essay sections or?
Yes.
Okay. Well, last week I did a group of 2 people, and basically what I did, I gave like, I think it was 5 problems, and I had 5 groups, and so I had them to solve the problems, and then at the end write them on the board, and then explain it to the whole group, and I think that worked pretty good.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Agustin. Your throwing abilities. All right.
Well. Planning is great. I still have no shows, so that's not really helping them. But I'm getting better at planning, and planning activities are going really well. But hopefully someone shows up.
Thank you.
I need to look what I was saying. Well, so far I've been getting pretty good turnouts, about 15 people a week. That's a little bit more than half of the class. The professor's really excited. She actually wants the whole class to come in, but I don't think that's gonna happen just because some people can't. Just they don't have the time. But so far it's pretty good. Today I received a compliment. They got their first exam back, and they thanked me for helping them out. So everything's good right now.
Let's see. Well, most recently, student line, she just had her first test, well, the class did, and she got 100%, and she thanked me for it. So that's a big deal. And the student said, basically, having them going up to the board and them participating also helps them a lot. And on my worksheets, I also put like the answer key after the session. So then if they miss anything or they didn't get a chance to write it down, they get that, and they thought that was really helpful. So I got that idea from Ben, who did that for his worksheets when he was tutoring me. And I'm getting better at time management because there's only so much time you have for activities. But, yeah.
All right, so now we're going to share what hasn't gone well or things that they're not doing well.
That was great. Just kidding. Things that haven't went well. Like on my Monday, Wednesday class, I do one essay session before class and one after. So the one after class, I get a few students straight from class. We walk together to the building. But most of them, like 4 go with me, and 3 of them have a class 1 hour. They have a class at 4. So they're only able to be there an hour. So they kind of just want to go up and have me answer what they want to work on. So what's hard for me is trying to find a way to have them work together instead of just focusing on what they want to do because they have such short time span that they could spend there with me.
I've had a lot of no-shows, which I'm not surprised with biology, but it's been hard to plan so many activities and then no one shows up and or they show up really late and you kind of have to work around starting them late, or if there's not that many people, how do I change my plan to accommodate 1 or 2 people instead of 4 or 5, which is more doable.
I was great at softball at some point in my life. Go ahead and share.
I have an average of 3 or 4 students. I just want them to come. I keep going into the classrooms announcing. And even one student told me oh, I was trying to get my friends to come, and they tell me we don't need it. We'll come when we need it. So how do you work around that? Getting that mindset off of the students? The is my thing, because I want like groups.
Are there any suggestions about anything that you guys feel we discussed?
For you, I think it's like what Teresa's always said, like you gotta go out there and sell yourself. So it depends on the class, but sometimes, at least for my class, we do like class activities. If you take that moment to kind of go around helping people like individually or in a group, whatever, you could kind of display your skills and, give them like helpful hints here and there that they actually might find pretty useful. So if you do that, maybe you were doing that,
And then Dr. Reed doesn't want me to, he wants me to give them hints, but not like, he wants them to struggle through the problem.
Can you think of any other incentives you could give
I
them?
think maybe just like probably doing maybe like a little tutoring session right before class, and then see if they respond.
So
That's
this
what I
thing that's
haven't-
like, when we don't need stuff, what kind of, so how do we realize we need stuff? I guess that's what I got, when I rephrase it differently. How do we, like, as individuals, like ourselves, reflect ourselves, like, how do we know we need something? Go and then.
Oh, well, kind of in relation to that, like my students have a lot of reading that they aren't doing. So I incorporate that into the session, like we're gonna get your reading done, and it's also helping them learn. So we did like divide and conquer. So everyone has a section, so they are actually doing some of their homework. So it's like incentive to do reading at one time. They don't have to do it in their free time, and then they're learning at the same time.
So what you're saying is
incorporating some of their classwork or something like that, some of the studying they do outside of class into the session.
Anybody else, like, think about what else are you gonna?
You can use the professor as a tool to advertise. On Monday, I went to meet with the professor, and we just started a new chapter, and it includes a lot of new nomenclature for inorganic complexes. And if you don't know the nomenclature, you can't get through that chapter because it's a whole different language. So what she did was kind of, tell them that if they go to SI sessions, that's going to prepare you more. If you can study together with people, not just yourself trying to, learn a list of new things. And she didn't really emphasize it much in class because that's something the students usually do by themselves. So you can use a professor to help you out in that.
Dr. Reed's willing to give us like a student that's like hardworking, up to 4%, and I mentioned that during the SI session, and even Dr. Reed like kind of elaborated on that, saying, if you have an 86, I'll bump your grade to an A, which is 90. So it's just kind of like, how do I?
Do you guys have seen, so Sergio, Sergio. There's one way that Sergio mentioned. Have you seen other ways that your faculty can help, that you see that maybe it has helped, or that you think that it could help? Yes.
We tell the professor to use some of our activities and put it on their practice, or even if possible.
Yes, you could definitely make that suggestion, and to share with you guys, we are going to have a faculty meeting with them, and I'm going to share, so that's why I'm drawing ideas from you guys. So whatever you guys can share with me, we can pitch in with them. That way, obviously we can't force anybody to do something, but they're always welcoming suggestions to make sure that we all get attendance.
Yeah, you just need to get them out of that mindset that it's for people that aren't doing well. It's for the students that want to prepare before.
What do you mean who? Like the students or the faculty?
No, the students that want the students, get them out of that mindset that the tutoring is remedial. Get them to. It's for good students that want to prepare, in the class and do well. Get ahead of the class.
Or keep
In a
your
way
good
that's-
grades.
Right.
That's it.
Keep your good grades, or even just learn, meet people.
Any other suggestions that you've seen your faculty do and that you want to share?
Some of the examples and the problems that I put on the worksheets that I make for them, Professor Main takes a look at the stuff I do, and he's actually, he'll mention it in class, that as an incentive to going, to the sessions, there's a great chance that they're gonna see problems that they might see. He'll always do, you might see this on the quiz, or you might see this on the test. And it's kind of like his way of telling them, you're gonna see this on the test.
Yeah.
And it's kind of maybe one, maybe two students that actually wanna go.
I'm actually having the opposite problems than like student who success and think that they don't need information. The first test is over and my class average was really low, from 50 to 60%. Only the student who confessed high got 80 to 90%. But then they still don't show up. So I don't know how to solve this problem. Well, I go to the class on the day after the exam and on the day of the exam to say, and I give them some pens to do the exam and I talk everything to them. But they still decide not to show. So I have the opposite problem.
And that actually makes sense.
So for my essay session, the Professor Hayes, she gives me, well, I actually worked with her over summer, not as an essay but workshop, and she gave me her sample quizzes and everything she uses during her lecture. So then I tell them a lot of my stuff, my worksheets are based on her quizzes, and everyone's like, oh, it's based on her quiz. Oh snap, that's gonna be on the quiz, and so like I get like a pretty good turnout. Yeah, but of course the day after the test, yeah, I do have a little bit of a problem, but thinking of finding ways to work around that. But she did have a thing where what Vin was talking about. She had them work on an activity in class, and so she just gave them some problems, and then like I went around helping, and then they were like, whoa, she really knows her stuff, and they were like, oh, why haven't I been going? Yeah, they've been telling me that, and I've been getting them questions about it.
So just kind of one word that you're gaining is credibility.
Yes, credibility.
So, and it takes a while to build that credibility. And sometimes when you don't want to answer questions, that's the give and take. Sometimes when you're trying to redirect questions, you start losing, like there's a trade-off. I mean, you gotta like gauge it because you lose credibility. That's how they're seeing it. So you gotta give them a little bit, but give them much more of the redirected questions. And Kim, last comment, and then Eric, I know, has one comment. What's that?
Questions like from the test or from the quizzes, is that allowed? Because I thought it wasn't.
Well, not using the exact same question.
Just tweak the
Yeah.
numbers.
Well, not like tweaking the numbers, but also making it in a way that if they do the worksheets, they should be able to do, rather well. So I also put out hints here and there, like what you should really focus on, because she tells me, what they need to focus on. And sometimes I miss it during lecture. So.
Yeah, I think that the idea is that you're connecting SI with the lecture, that they don't happen, that they're not in two different worlds. And making similar questions is doable. However, if you have a test question that you do know, you gotta always double check with the faculty, because I don't know, every faculty has ways of seeing the exam, and you cannot use the same question, like they see it as a way that you cannot use the same question. You have to come up with different things because they reuse those exam questions. So they value those questions, and everybody has different values to those questions, I guess what I'm trying to say. So you definitely want to talk to the faculty about that. But that's definitely doable because you want to see the connections and what's in it for me next. So Eric had, could you share that idea that you gained from El Camino to attract people before an exam?
Oh yeah, definitely. I used to work at El Camino College, which is in Torrance, and they've been doing SI for over 10 years, and they're very, very, very good at it. So when I started, this week I started attending some of the sessions, I realized there was not that great of a turnout in some of your sessions. And so I called one of my former colleagues and asked, well, what are they doing? What kind of turnout do they get? And he said they get from 50 to 80% of the class attending all the time. I was like, okay, what are you doing? What's the goal take? And he said, well, it does take time, but one of the things we did instill was do a mock test, not just a review session, but a week before each midterm or each test, they go through a full mock test. And what they do is the SI leader makes the test, gives it to the professor looks it over, okays it, this is very similar, and has the whole, everyone who wants to go through the whole motions of doing the test. And after the test, they go over and review it. So it's not only just a review session, which a lot of people could be like, okay, yeah, I know what to do. No, it's a full-on simulated test environment, going through the motions, and they found a lot of value in that. So a lot of students jumped at the chance to go through it, and the students that did go through it saw a lot of value in that, saying, okay, that session really prepared me, not only for the material, but emotionally, physically. I kind of went through the motions. They saw a lot of value in that, so that really upped their attendance. And people started coming. So now they have a great attendance. Obviously, this took time. We're brand new. We're instilling a culture. It's going to take time before we get 80% as a norm, but that should be the goal for us. But I thought that was a really good idea.
Do we tell them it's a mock test? Or we can just don't tell anything?
You should tell them it's a mock
We
test.
don't want to scare them away.
Really, because if they know it's a mock test, some of them might not be really serious about it. Because I did that once, but not so many students be serious about it.
I guess understanding the psychology of doing well in a stressful environment, you must prepare yourself for that stressful environment. Be it performing on stage, be it doing a test, you have to embrace that and prep for it, and not just I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Oh, okay, and it hit the wall. No, the more you get familiar with that stressful environment, the more it becomes familiar, and it is so stressful, and so that big monster starts to become a little sponge dragon, like Tatiana has her hand, And so to remind them, anyone who's really prepped for testing, going through those motions is essential to doing well. Even going into the room. I mean, even when I prep for an interview, a job interview, if I can, I will go in the room where they're going to interview me, just to know the layout, just to know how it is, the lighting, just to be familiar with it, because it can really blindside you, and then you're completely off if it's completely different than what you had imagined. So selling that concept, if you really want to do well, this is just part of the process. You might not have thought of that, but think about it. Going through these motions and being mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually prepared as well, hitting all those targets, and going through a mock test, it doesn't seem that bad, because we're going to go over it and go through it and dissect one by one. How would you dissect this question? How would you go over it? Yes?
So when they do the mock test, do you give them the test and let them complete it? And not as if they were taking an
Yes.
actual test, and then once everybody's done, then you go and answer the questions
We do
or
the
give
next
them the
session.
answer.
You do a time limit, because,
Okay.
you have to be, for the
Yeah.
time. So
But you don't help them if they get stuck in.
absolutely not.
Okay.
It is 100% as if the test was real. Otherwise, it loses its value, it loses its impact. The whole dress rehearsal, those of us who have been in plays, same thing. Dress rehearsal, go through the motions, get dressed up, totally everything. That's what that works. And then you go over, okay, everyone take a deep breath, take a 10-minute break, breather, we're going to come back tonight, sit in a group and reflect and say, okay, number one, what was it and why? Why wasn't B the answer? Just kind of dissect it. Not just instantly tell them what the answer is. What's the thought process going on? And that really, really helps people break down and digest and process that whole testing experience. Because you have to test well, just like people who are athletes, or in competitions. People might be a good surfer, but in competitive sports, they choke. You have to be under that pressure, you have to be good under pressure. Same thing with all of us. We're not going to get away from doing tests. I'd love for us not to have grades and A, B, C, but that's never going to happen, not in this country. So might as well get good at it. And think of it that way. That worked for them in the initial stages. They started selling themselves, and people saw the value of going through the motions, just like a dress rehearsal. You can promote it kind of like a dress rehearsal. That's very common. Everyone's been in school plays in 5th grade or something like that, or seen them. They go through a dress rehearsal or a recital in front of their parents first, and then the opening night, that type of thing. That worked really well for them. Besides consistently promoting every single week what you're going to do for the week. Every single week, every class period, if you can, get 10 seconds or 15 seconds. And this really has to do with your camaraderie with the professor. That the professor, it's really, faculty is really key in this to back SI. And after a while, hopefully, preventative care, as far as having them buy into, I need this. I mean, people in the gym, it's just, you can probably tailor it to a gym. You know, people at 5 o'clock in the gym are already look great. You know, I look great. Why do I need the gym? Well, for the time that you don't, the people who are taking care of themselves, they're always going to look great. That preventative care. You might not need it now. You might be understanding the concepts, but next chapter you might. And so, little do you know, you do need this, even if it's to reiterate what you already know. Now, that's part of learning. You know, I mean, reiterate. You know, getting all the senses involved, memory, all those types of things. So if they think they don't need it, and they're gonna wait till, you know, I'm gonna eat horrible until I have cavities and then get them fixed. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But that's the mentality they're giving. And you have to make them aware of that in a nice, unoffensive manner. And help them, and that's going to take time to help them to buy into it. I mean, what usually happens a lot of times with SI is they finally buy into it after their second midterm when it's too late. Just like marriage and family therapy counselors, you know, the people go in when it's way past, most of them fail because they go to counseling way too late and not at the beginning of their marriage when there aren't any problems. But there's always problems in relationships. You know, people just don't realize that because counseling, you must have a problem. You're going to counseling. It's the same type of thing. No, I'm doing preventative things. I'm going to counseling now so we can get things and that's kind of the mentality that you have to break, and it's going to take time. But with a lot of preparation, a lot of promotion, weekly promotion, not only emails, but consistent 10-second blurbs on in class. I have a question for all you. Are you being utilized in class, or do you just sit there and observe? Do you?
She, like Professor Bibi, everything's online, what
Uh-huh.
they do. So she lectures, she does a few PowerPoints on one section, and then she opens up their homework. And then for about 15 minutes, they work on homework, they raise their hand, they get stuck anywhere, and that's when I go around and help them. She goes around too, if there's like a lot of hands going up, she'll go around too, but I'm mainly going around helping them out. And I have noticed that when I do go around and help them out, they feel really comfortable calling me over rather than calling Professor Bibi over. And then she'll begin to lecture, she'll say, okay, close your homework, we're gonna start the next section. And then she opens that section and they work on, lunch is done, they'll start working on the homework for that section. You know, try a few easy problems, a few hard problems. And then sometimes, like she had a meeting this Wednesday, so she left class at 3:20. And she asked me if I wanted to stay and help some of the students. She was like, class is over, but we kind of had like a mini SI session, and there was a few students that stayed, and they really liked it. They really liked, and that's what I was trying to tell them, like, you come, you know, you get this help that you need, because they have questions. They need that help. They really do.
Do you guys make announcements every lecture you guys go to? Like, you actually stand up and you make an announcement? Usually?
Yes, I remind them every lecture. I remind them.
Do you
right
tell
before.
them specifically what's gonna be covered during that week?
Yeah, well, I remind them that every session will be going over what they're seeing at that week.
So if you haven't done that, I highly recommend it because it's the repetition that works in our brain. Visual repetition as well, so having and posting a challenging question on the board, they allow you to write a challenging question, talk to the instructor and say, oh, could you pitch this question so that, you know, like, it's hard or like there's some connection between you and, you know, like what's gonna happen. But you really need to bring up that repetition constantly, and being specific is really what's gonna sell them out. Like, saying we're gonna hold an SI session still doesn't tell them anything. It goes through one ear and then the
They don't
other.
understand what SI is. It's a foreign
So
term.
it's like, what actually are you going to do? Having fun still doesn't tell them that. Topics is what tells them that. So specific things like, are you having trouble with, and you guys know what they're having trouble with. Are you having trouble with such and such, blank blank? Sell the point. That's all you gotta say. You don't have to like say, we're gonna do, I'm here to help. And you sit down and that's it. I mean, you don't need to really go on and on and on and on. Just quickly, like sound bites.
Also, I found out that by changing seats every so often when you sit in class, when you notice that they're done with their notes, and then they look confused or they're kind of glazed. And you're like, oh no, do you have any questions? Or oh, did you get what she said? Or I'll just interact with them, and they're like, they get used to my personality, and then they're like, oh my god, no, that helps. I wish I had known that.
That's a great strategy as well. If you sit in the same place all the time, your brain, remember, it's all about your brain. Your brain already ignores. It's by habituation. When you're driving, you don't check every single thing because you've already seen it so many times. So sitting in different areas makes you see the next person. Like, oh, who's it? Oh, I never see. Ah, it must be such and such. And it's by relationships. So we're building up, and it is difficult. You guys remember that we're beginning this program, but changing things. And we'll talk to our faculty as well. So hopefully we'll keep it.
I want you to be utilized. I mean, if you're not, obviously it's up to the faculty members. It's their classroom. Offer your assistance. I know EJ always talked about he teaches English, right?
Mm-hmm.
How he loves using his SI coach or SI facilitator to bounce off ideas during class and use them during class. If you're just there completely silent, at least move around, definitely, but offer your assistance during the class to your faculty or teacher, professor, and maybe they could use you in a way that they never had thought before. So you're more visible, so you're more part of the class, so you're more part of the culture, and going to the sessions will be more expected and part of the class culture than something, I don't have to do that because I don't have a problem yet. That's for people who have problems. That's to break this culture and recondition them, I guess would be the proper term is, because we all thought about that, that's a very high school mentality, it's for the remedial kids. To recondition them is going to take some time, but we don't have the time to wait till the very end of the semester when they have a C- and they, oh my gosh, I gotta cram, I gotta do everything I can, I'm gonna start going. We don't have the time for that, because that's what's gonna happen to a lot of them. We gotta save these guys before they know it, and I love it that they were, a lot of you, they were saying thank you. Because of this person, I got a better grade. Wow, that's awesome. Really put those people on pedestals and use them for feedback. So-and-so, how did you do on this test? Why? Because of SI. To really embed and change and recondition that culture. It's gonna be a long little process, but hopefully little by little, semester by semester, we'll keep going up. All right.
If we can use our students that go to our SI regularly and then do
peers?
Yeah, I mean our students, the one that go to our SI every week and did better on the exam.
Yes.
We can tell them to talk to the others or sit next to them and have the interaction.
You can ask the instructor, if that person doesn't mind, ask the instructor who actually, if they could say such and such did very well and they actually attended the SI. But your faculty can write that in. One last thing and then we gotta move on.
Well, maybe it's not the right thing, because I move on, because the question I was gonna ask is, it's gonna encompass a lot.
What's the question? We
Yeah,
can
you
write it
can
down.
I'm these past few weeks in these meetings, I've been hearing a lot of, it seems like we're trying to get, I see a fine line between quality sessions and sessions with quantity. Meaning, are we focusing on getting in numbers as far as how many students come, or are we focusing in making sure some students get better grades?
Both.
Okay, and that's where I'm having a really, really hard time with this, because I'm more inclined to caring about quality. And if that means focusing more on one or two students as opposed to just selling something to get more numbers, and some students aren't going to even try. I guess what I'm trying to say is, these meetings, what I keep hearing is, get people to come, as opposed to how are we making it a good session.
We're working on both things, I hope. The session number is important because they're the students that we want to support all students. Convincing people takes a culture, and we don't have that culture yet.
And so I was wondering if there is an urgency to get this program to like explode, or is it,
We want quality, but we also want attendance. We want both things.
Right.
We're not, so I don't see the disconnect, there's no dichotomy about why you should have looking at attendance as like quantity versus quality. In an essay session, whoever you're there, whether it's one person or it's 20 people,
Yeah.
you should have the same quality.
yeah,
But outside of the essay session, you're searching for quantity through your promotions, through your faculty promoting.
Okay.
Two different, so they're not dichotomies in reality. They should be like going hand. No matter what, we're aiming for good quality, no matter what. One person, 20 people.
okay.
I think it's just maybe a matter of changing the strategies, because when I have like 10 to 15 students, I always use clusters, and that always works because they're talking to each other all the time, rather than when I have like 1 or 2 students, I kind of do a little bit more of a tutoring session.
Right.
But just maybe change up the strategy.
I guess maybe I have a hard time only because I've been searching for ways every week to implement activities, and I find it's tough with math because some of these students don't want to come in and do activities and have the warm up in the middle and the close or whatever. They want to, they need to, sometimes they want to come in and they need to see it done. And so I have to show them. And so the only thing I've been able to figure out is, okay, well, I will guide them. I don't touch the marker. I give them the marker and say, you're gonna do it. And I'll let you do it, and I'll guide you through it. But I'm gonna watch you. And that's about that's probably the only activity that I can come up with.
Aren't we all that way though? When you're having a hard time about something, don't we want to be shown exactly how it's done? Somebody can, you teach me, isn't that the mode? Alright, so that's a good segue actually, where we're gonna go in. So,
Do you have them on the desks or right here? Okay, you know what, I like this. Everyone get into your groups that you were in last week, right here in the round.
You guys forgot who you were with?
You were with me. Oh, okay. See, I remember better than you.
Oh, you're.
Get some space between groups, so if we have a lot of space over here, shuffle down, because you're going to be talking a lot.
Sorry.
You three?
Yes.
Oh, we're missing Kimberly.
Okay.
Hey, how about you?
Okay, so when you're in your groups, remember, okay, just talk for 30 seconds between yourselves and exactly what you did last week. What was the mock session you guys did?